Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. I never imagined a single sentence could end a marriage, but that night proved me wrong. My name is Claire. I'm 36, and until recently, I thought honesty was always better than silence. I was wrong about that too. When I married Daniel, I told myself love could grow over time, that companionship and effort could turn into something real. What I didn't admit, not even to myself at first, was how much of my decision was rooted in old pain. I met Daniel 3 years after my breakup with Ryan. Ryan was my first real love, the kind that rewires how you see yourself. We were together for 5 years, and when he left, it wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no cheating, just a calm, devastating conversation where he told me he'd outgrown me. 2 months later, he was engaged to a woman he'd known less than a year. I smiled when I heard the news, congratulated him, and cried alone in my car afterward like something inside me collapsed. Daniel came into my life quietly. He was steady, kind, the kind of man who remembered details without trying. He brought soup when I had the flu, fixed my leaky faucet without making a performance, listened without interrupting. He wasn't intense like Ryan. He didn't make my heart race. Instead, he made my life feel safe. After years of emotional whiplash, safe felt irresistible. When Daniel proposed, I hesitated for weeks. Not because of him, but because of the voice in my head that whispered I wasn't fully healed. Then Ryan posted his engagement photos online. Candlelit dinner, smiling faces, a caption about finding his forever. That night, I said yes to Daniel. I told myself it was timing. I told myself it was maturity. Somewhere deep down, I knew it was also spite. Our marriage wasn't unhappy. That's the part that makes this story harder to explain. We laughed. We traveled. We hosted dinners. Daniel adored me in a quiet, unshowy way. But there was always a thin wall between us, something I couldn't fully tear down. When he held me, I felt comfort, not desire. When he said he loved me, I said it back, but it felt rehearsed, like repeating lines I was supposed to believe. The truth pressed on me over time. Every anniversary, every family gathering, every casual question about how we met made the lie heavier. I started to resent Daniel for being good to me, because his goodness highlighted my own dishonesty. I told myself I'd confess one day. I just kept waiting for the right moment. The right moment arrived on an ordinary Tuesday. We were sitting at the kitchen table, half-finished dinners between us, the hum of the dishwasher filling the silence. Daniel looked tired, not angry, just worn. He said, "Claire, do you ever feel like I love you more than you love me?" The question landed softly, but it cut deep. I could have lied. I had lied before. Instead, something in me cracked. I don't remember deciding to speak. The words just came out. "I need to tell you something," I said. My hands were shaking, but my voice was calm. "When I married you, part of me did it to get back at my ex." The moment the sentence left my mouth, I wanted to pull it back. I rushed to continue. "It wasn't the whole reason. I care about you. I do." Daniel stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He didn't ask a single question. He just looked at me like I confirmed something he'd been afraid to name. His face went blank. "I need some air," he said. I followed him to the hallway, words tumbling over each other. "Daniel, please. That's not the full story. I thought I could grow into us. I was wrong, but that doesn't mean none of it was real." He didn't respond. He grabbed his jacket, his phone, his keys. I stood there barefoot on the cold tile, watching my marriage walk out the door. The front door closed without a slam. The sound was quiet, final. I told myself he just needed space, that he'd come back so we could talk. As the minutes passed, a sick certainty settled in. I hadn't just hurt him. I had shattered the foundation of everything we were. And in that silence, I realized consequences don't wait for explanations anymore. The next few hours were a blur. I stayed in the kitchen, clutching a mug of cold tea I hadn't touched, listening to the faint sound of traffic outside, trying to convince myself that Daniel would come back. I kept rehearsing what I would say how I could fix this, how I could make him understand that my confession didn't erase the life we had built together. But deep down, I knew that sometimes understanding is enough. Sometimes honesty is too heavy, even when it's meant to set things right. By late evening, my phone buzzed. It was a text from him. Just one line. "I'm staying at my brother's tonight. Don't call." The simplicity of it, the calmness, cut sharper than any shout or argument could have. It wasn't anger. It was disappointment, the kind that leaves you hollow. My stomach turned over. I realized I had given him a truth he didn't ask for, and it had become a weapon against us, whether I intended it or not. I tried to distract myself. I poured another cup of tea, scrolled mindlessly through social media, but everything reminded me of him, our first trip together. The small gestures he did without noticing me notice, the way he laughed at my terrible jokes, the way he hummed along to songs I loved. All of it seemed taunting now, a reminder of what I had risked and lost in a single confession. Later that night, I found myself standing by the window, watching the street lamps blur in the rain. I thought about Ryan, the reason I had said yes to Daniel in the first place. That old wound had dictated a choice that should have been about love, not revenge. I felt anger at myself for being so petty, for letting past pain dictate my future. And yet, the guilt for hurting Daniel was heavier than any self-directed anger. I knew there was no undoing my words, no taking back the admission, no magic phrase that could make the damage vanish. The next morning, Daniel didn't return. I called, texted, but he ignored everything. I wanted to respect his space, but the silence was deafening. By midday, I drove to his apartment, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight they ached. When I got there, the door was locked. No note, no message beyond the curt text from last night. I stood on the stoop, rain soaking through my coat, realizing that this was no temporary storm. This was the end, or at least it felt like it. Hours turned into a day, and then another. Every phone call I ignored myself, hoping maybe, somehow, he would reach out first, wanted to bridge the gap I had created. But every tick of the clock reminded me that some things, once broken, don't bend back into place. I replayed our marriage in my mind, tried to find a single moment where I could have chosen differently, where honesty could have waited. I could see now that timing, no matter how well-intentioned, is everything. Speak too soon and you destroy. Speak too late and it becomes irrelevant. 3 days after his departure, my apartment felt impossibly empty. Every corner, every object, every sound reminded me of Daniel. His coffee mug still sat on the counter. His jacket hung on the coat rack, a faint scent lingering in the air. I wanted to pack it all away, to erase his presence like I wished I could erase my words, but I couldn't. Instead, I sat on the floor, leaning against the couch, and allowed the quiet to consume me. It was a different kind of loneliness than the one I had known with Ryan, the one that had fueled my original revenge. This was a loneliness steeped in regret, heavy with the knowledge that I had destroyed something precious out of old wounds, and no one could fix it but me, and even I couldn't guarantee forgiveness. That night, I received a message from a mutual friend. "Have you heard from Daniel?" I didn't answer. How could I explain that I had confessed my darkest truth and that it had sent him away for good? How could I convey that what I thought was honesty was actually a recklessness that had severed the last thread of our life together? Every potential reply felt inadequate, every word too small for the damage done. The weekend came, and with it, a stark reality. Daniel wasn't coming back. I sat with my confession, dissected every nuance, every phrase, and every unintended implication. The truth, once spoken, can't be unsaid. I understood that now. I realized that some acts of honesty, no matter how well-intentioned, are not gifts. They are knives. And sometimes, the wound they create cannot heal, not completely, not ever. By Monday, the finality of our separation had settled around me like a shadow. I went through our home, touching objects as if saying goodbye to parts of him, his favorite mug, the books he had stacked by the bed, the scarf he left draped across the chair. Each one was a memory and a reminder that my actions had consequences. I had intended to be brave, to speak the truth, to free both of us from lies. Instead, I had discovered that bravery without timing is cruelty. And in that cruel lesson, I was left alone, staring at a marriage I could no longer claim, mourning not just a man I loved, but the life we might have had if honesty had come in its proper season. And so, I sit here now, months later, carrying both the lesson and the loss. I don't know if Daniel will ever speak to me again. I don't know if forgiveness is possible. All I know is that one sentence, one admission, was enough to turn a life of comfort and companionship into an empty apartment filled with echoes of what might have been. And for the first time in years, I understand that truth, while powerful, can also be irreversible.